One day after school, my friends and I went to a nearby food court to study for a math exam we had the next day. This detail will be important later. Now, leading up to that day, I had been diligently procrastinating, so I needed to spend every single second I had that day studying for math. It was only in that way could I possibly avoid getting a terrifying B. As I was frantically doing practice papers, I clumsily knocked my pencil off the table and onto the ground. Which wasn't a big deal. All I had to do was pick it up. Except, as I bent over to do so, I smashed my head into the corner of the chair beside me. I touched my forehead, saw a bunch of blood, and thought to myself, something tells me I have a massive wound on my head. I sauntered to the toilet to clean it up, and here's how it looked like. Yeah, I know, I have quite a beautiful eyebrow. At this point, I essentially had two options. I could either visit a doctor right away and end up having less time to study, or continue studying and run the risk of an infection destroying my body from the inside out. Here's what my brain did. Fine. I suppose my health is slightly more important than a grade on an exam that won't have any impact on my university application in the slightest. Sure enough, at the hospital, the doctor explained that it was a pretty large wound and that it needed to be stitched up immediately to prevent infection. That was horrifying news. How would I possibly have enough time to study for math now? To make matters worse, as I was waiting for my turn to get operated on, I had gel applied in the region of the wound and some cotton gauze were taped around it to prevent it from flowing into my eyes. Yeah, except there were gaps between the gauze and my skin, so to prevent the gel from leaking through them and giving me a second injury, I had to tilt my head backwards. And if you didn't know, this makes it incredibly difficult to study. But I was determined to do well in an exam that didn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but nonetheless, I was determined. So with all my might, I raised my notes up in the air to read them. Is he crazy? Well, I like to think that time is money. Doesn't that come at the cost of people judging you? Wait, what are you doing? No! Don't get rid of me! Anyways, the surgery went exceptionally well because it only took 30 minutes, and as soon as I got back home, I went to bed. Look, keeping your hands raised in the air for an hour is more tiring than it looks, alright? Overall, I would say that it was a pretty interesting experience, and if there's one thing I learned, it's to never ever ever pick pencils off the ground. Hi everyone, if you have any feedback on areas for improvement, do let me know in the comment section. Also, some of you might be wondering how I ended up doing on that math test. Well, I got